Something I've been wanting to do for years now is to go up and down the Jersey Shore and ride all the coasters. I had the crazy idea that I could ride all of them in one day. That was unrealistic, but this summer, I was able to hit up the 3 best ones in one day. 3 parks, 14 coasters. Let's talk about them and rank them up. These are the coasters of the Jersey Shore. First off, I should tell you about these parks. First up was Casino Pier at Seaside Heights. This park made the news in 2012 for being washed out by Superstorm Sandy, with the famous images of their E&F Miler coaster, Starjet, falling into the ocean when its section of the pier collapsed. This park was pretty dead in the early afternoon. We found cheap metered parking on the street, and we hit all the coasters within 1 hour. I was able to ride all of them, plus get a ride on the giant Ferris wheel for $25 a person. That's not bad. We took off to Maury's Piers in Wildwood, and this was bound to be a lot more time consuming. There are 3 separate piers, each one about a quarter of a mile to a half mile apart, and the park's 7 coasters are spread out across all 3. We found $10 daytime parking right next to the pier, but we did have to be out of there by 8 p.m. Casino Pier wasn't too expensive, but I can't say the same about Maury's Piers. Each ticket was $1.50, and each coaster took between 6 and 9 tickets. We picked up all 7 credits, but it ran us $75 per person. The smallest coasters ended up being $9, and the big ones were $13.50. We didn't backtrack or anything, but even just going out and back from one side of the pier to the other took a huge chunk out of the day. So if you're planning on hitting a lot of boardwalks, set a lot of time aside for Maury's. It was pretty dead when we got there, but by the time we left, we could tell the crowds were slowly starting to roll in. Yeah, apparently the Jersey boardwalks are really the place to be at night. Our last park was Playland's Castaway Cove, and that place was jam-packed. We had to park kind of far away, but it was a free city-owned lot. They have 4 coasters here, and we got on all of them, and you can do everything for $24 a person. I usually like to see a park during the day to get the full experience, but all I had was that shoulder-to-shoulder night visit, which was chaotic, but still a lot of fun. Okay, so those are the parks. Here are the coasters. We'll start this off with an honorable mention, a coaster that was complete and ready to roll, but hadn't gotten full clearance from the state yet. This is Zolo Loca. I guess that translates the crazy dog from Spanish to English. This is an SBF Visa Big Air coaster, and this has the hamster wheel, which will invert its riders, while the other cars are just spinning around. This was listed as one of the rides on their ticket list, so I got excited, but I never got to ride it. This finally did open a month after I was there, though I heard the hamster wheel wasn't quite open yet. And honestly, that's the only thing that makes this ride interesting. They built it around their kiddie coaster, a nice space-saving technique, and I'm sure the hamster wheel will make this worth a trip out there, since there aren't too many of those in the world yet. Just 5 as of now, and 4 of them are in America. Number 14, Pirates Hideaway at Casino Pier. I thought this might be a fun ride. It has a nice facade in the front with the trains dipping and dropping in front of it, before it mysteriously disappears into the building. You might think that some crazy treasures await you inside, but if you saw my best and worst coaster by state video, you saw this as the worst coaster in the entire state of New Jersey. So what do you think was in there? Nothing good. This is a Wisdom Rides coaster, an American manufacturer known for their family and kiddie rides, so this is one of their bigger models. This came to the park in 2007, survived Superstorm Sandy, but had to be moved to the eastern edge of the park to make room for Hydrus in 2016. As for the ride, you start off with a spiral lift hill. There's no height stat for this, but I'm going to say it's maybe like 25 feet. And then you drop, turn to the left, another drop, and then you take a turn to the right, and this is where you'll find the extensive pirate theming. A ship, gold everywhere, skeletons, cannons. Wait, no? None of that? It's just an empty box with dips and turns that are jerky and painful, and then the ride's over?
Dude, I'm like, I'm about to go through some pain. I might as well get it over with now, quick.
Well, that was pointless. That gets the bottom spot, even behind the kiddie coasters. Number 13, Pirates Gold Rush at Playland's Castaway Cove. In the category of shame, I have a little, but not enough to keep me from getting this kiddie credit. It's an E&F Miler, so it's got those RMC style angles and ejector hills, but otherwise it has an oval layout that's kind of hidden from the rest of the park, so that layout is a mystery. I'll give you a hint, it's an oval. Good kiddie coaster. Number 12, Hot Tamales at Casino Pier. The coaster that Zolo Loco wraps around is this kiddie coaster built by L&T Systems. I honestly have never heard of them, but they're an Italian manufacturer and they have a couple dozen coasters out there. Maybe you remember Sideshow Spin at Dollywood, or if you stay on the Jersey Boardwalk and you go to Jillian's Wonderland Pier in Ocean City, they made the Runaway Train coaster. But if you wanted to snag a ride on these, you can't, because they're defunct, just like L&T Systems. Anyway, this has a Mexican theme just like Zolo Loca, but this one is themed to a mouse. The head is at the front of the train, and there's the tail at the end. Just like Pirates Hideaway, this was relocated during the shakeup that Hydrus caused in 2016. This is kind of a borderline kiddie family coaster. standing almost 12 feet tall, starting with a helix and then ending with an airtime hill. And you get to go around the course like 87 times. Or maybe it was 6 or 7, I lost count. Number 11, Dew Whopper at Maury's Piers. You would think that you can't possibly go wrong with a coaster themed to fast food, but here we are. This is the worst Wild Mouse coaster I've ever ridden. Well, okay, Coast Rider is worse because of the shin bars, but in terms of layout, Dew Whopper sucks. This is the only Zamperla mouse that I've ridden, though the actual name is a zigzag coaster. Usually after a mouse zigs and zags, it has some pretty good drops, but this one just has mild dips. It couldn't be more pointless. If you don't want to fork over $10.50 to ride this hunk of junk, you can also find this at 7 other parks, including Wild Waves and Rye Playland. But don't get too excited. I think going through a real actual drive-thru is more exciting than this Wild Mouse. If you came to Maury's Piers between 1998 and 2004, you rode the Dew Whopper on Wild Wheels Pier. From 2005 on, it's been operating on the 25th Street Pier. I consider relocations new credits, but I wouldn't give it to you if you just moved from one pier to the other. That's cheap, even by my standards. Number 10, Wild Whizzer at Maury's Piers. It wouldn't be a good boardwalk without an SBF spinner. Now that Zolo Loca is open, all 3 of these piers have one. This one was nothing special. You get to go through the nifty Wild Whizzer sign with all that snazzy artwork, and you get to do a bunch of cycles. These are fun rides, and I do consider them family coasters because the spinning can get crazy. It depends on the ride. Number 9, Whirlwind at Playland's Castaway Cove. I won't bore you with too many details about another SBF spinner, but I got a particularly spinny ride on this one. Maybe it was super warmed up because I rode it at night. I'm sure that's a thing that happens. And this also has a nice sign that it travels through. This one's a little less happy than Wild Whizzer, with a tornado on an island. As a new Oklahoman, this freaks me out a little bit. Number 8, Raleigh's Coaster at Maury's Piers. I was taking note of the crazy expensive rides at Maury's Piers, but none of them are all that janky. Well, except for this one. This is a Pinfari Cyclone that dates back to 1999, and these things are everywhere, especially county fairs. It's basically medium-sized drops and large drawn-out turns. It also has over-the-shoulder restraints, which are totally unnecessary. And the cars are tiny, so I got to spend the entire ride banging my knees in the front of the car. This was my first ride at Maury's Piers, and I figured it could only get better from there. I'd asked for my $10.50 back, but I got the credit and that's all I really wanted. A good ride for that money would be too much to ask. Number 7, Wild Waves at Playland's Castaway Cove. When this park removed their looping Pinfari called Python back in 2015, they figured Gale Force would be a solid replacement. But what can make it even better? Build a janky custom ENF miler that wraps around their new star ride. It looks like it has halfway decent airtime, and it's not a small coaster by any means, standing 50 feet tall. Apparently, if you're in the back with a full train, it'll give you some good airtime. I did get the back, but because of a weird grouping snafu, there was only one person in front of us, and that was Joey. And by the way, big shout out to Joey for helping us out that day. But Joey didn't have enough weight by himself to really make the ride pop. I ended up with a pretty smooth, pain-free, fun tour around Gale Force. It was just forceless. I only had time for the one ride, so I think I owe it a better ride later on. Number 6, Runaway Tram at Maury's Piers. Here's the newest coaster at Maury's Piers, opening in 2019. And if you didn't know who built it, you may not guess it. This is a Zero family coaster, and I was very impressed. This has a very interesting theme. Maury's Piers has a tram that takes people from pier to pier, and if you spent more than 5 minutes here, you've probably heard the "watch the tram please" spiel over the loudspeaker. This coaster is supposed to be that tram gone wild. This is smooth, silent, and a fast-paced family coaster. And at the beginning, there's even a stomach-dropping moment if you're in the back. I enjoyed this a lot. It's one of the better family coasters that I've ridden. Number 5, Sea Serpent at Maury's Piers. Who would think that we'd be celebrating a Vekoma boomerang? Based on all the upgrades they've done with this, you may think this is one of the newer boomerangs, but in reality, it's one of the originals, dating back to 1984, the year the model made its grand debut. In 2020, it got a brand new train that features the Vester strain, just like you'll find at Hershey Park and Carowinds and Wallaby Holland. It's got a great setting right in the middle of the pier, and I'm willing to say it's the best boomerang that I've ridden. These can be really fun when they're not shaking you around and your head isn't in danger. Number 4, Great White at Maury's Piers. It's weird to see a full-size wooden coaster on a boardwalk. Well, okay, Boardwalk Bullet does exist. Oh yeah, and the Giant Dippers. You know what? Shut up. Great White is a CCI that dates back to 1996, and it's the only coaster on Adventure Pier. It juts out off the pier and onto the beach, and it has that steel support structure to help it fight the oceanside elements. This starts off by dropping you under the boardwalk, into a dark tunnel before going up the lift. I went in thinking it was going to be rough, but it was remarkably smooth for its age, with the one exception being that last turnaround. It's also a long ride at 3,300 feet, making that hefty $13.50 price tag worth it. It also was running 2 trains, which was a nice surprise. It seemed like one train was standard for these boardwalks. But once I got on the train, I was stapled beyond stapling I've ever seen. The ride-out made me put my feet flat on the floor and then slide them under the seat in front of me, and then proceeded to crush all my hopes and dreams of having a good ride. Well, the joke's on you. I still had a good ride, and I don't think this had any airtime anyway. I'm not confident in that judgment because I would have no way of knowing, but that's how it seemed to me. Ride-ups. Please don't staple people after they just paid $13.50 for one ride. I know, it's a safety issue, but it's really not. You don't need to do it. Number 3. Hydrus at Casino Pier. This was, I guess, the grand replacement for the Starjet after it got swallowed up by the ocean in 2012. That E&F Miler coaster looked kinda janky, just like Hurricane at Fun Spot, and Hydrus is anything but. Hydrus is one of the smoothest, most well-engineered coasters I've ever ridden. I haven't always had the best luck with Gerstlauers and smoothness, but Hydrus rocked it. I had already ridden Adrenaline Peak at Oaks Park, so I knew what to expect, and Hydrus is basically that with a better setting. Just look at all these people on the beach surfing as a background for this beautiful coaster. So I got stapled badly on Great White, but I took that ride on Hydrus with a borderline absurd amount of room, so I got to feel every airtime and hangtime moment to its max, and that made the ride incredible. It is over way too fast, but for a boardwalk coaster, you can understand why. For $10, you'd hope maybe it'd give you a little bit more, but it's got enough redeeming qualities for me to look the other way on that. Number 2. The Great Nor'easter at Maury's Piers. I'd gotten a good preview of what an elite Vekoma SLC could look like when I rode Riddler Revenge at Six Flags New England earlier that week. Great Nor'easter puts it all together in one amazing package. First off, that boardwalk setting means tight quarters, so there's a lot of near misses throughout the course. Because you're flipping right over people's heads, you need to get a locker. They check you going in for anything metal, so make use of those free lockers outside the queue line. Board your new age Vekoma train with a Vest restraint, something the park invested in back in 2008, and head up your 115-foot lift hill, and embark on a familiar journey. But this one is a little bit different. Almost all the track was stripped out and replaced in 2016 and 2017, so we got great trains on new track. So what's the result? An incredible, intense SLC. Not the longest layout, but it packs a punch, just like a B&M inverted Batman model. My one ride on Great Nor'easter was incredibly intense. It felt like it was trying to pull my feet off, and I got to experience it without riding defensively and riding pain-free. What a concept. This is how Vekoma envisioned it, but the execution wasn't great. Good on Maury's Piers to invest in their rides and bring us the best ride possible. If you're used to the old, rickety, terrible SLCs at the low-end Six Flags parks, try to get to Wildwood and ride the Great Nor'easter. It might just blow your mind. Number 1. Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove. Once I made my way through the mass of people, this is the first ride I went to. It was about a 45-minute wait, far and away the longest wait of any coaster on the boardwalks. This doesn't have great capacity. One train, 12 riders each, but the ride time isn't that long, so the line keeps moving. You have to empty your pockets on this one also. They don't want things flying out of your pockets coming over those hills, and they also don't allow water dummies on here anymore for the same reason. But anyway, you can empty your pockets once you're in the station, and they just wheel your bin over to the other side so nobody can take your stuff. This weird coaster was built by SNS, and apparently not very well. It got an entirely new track after its first season in 2017. People were complaining that it was a rough piece of crap. Apparently this retrack worked. I thought it was very smooth. I didn't realize it had vest restraints, so that was kinda disappointing. I got pretty stapled on the ride itself, not so much in the station. This has that rolling launch you'll find on the Skyrocket 2 models. Forward, backward, and then one big thrust forward to send you over the 125-foot top hat, a beyond vertical drop, and then a layout full of ejector airtime and weird angles, with elements that look like inversions but never turn you upside down. And best of all, you get to do it all twice. Doing this for the first time at night in the back row was very disorienting, and one day I hope to ride this during the day to see what's going on a little bit better. But the forces speak for themselves. Those drops are insane, and the weird angles make them even more chaotic. With those bulky vest restraints and the big handlebars, I kept slamming my elbows into them throughout the ride every time I hit one of those wonky angles, so that kinda hurt the ride in my opinion. But I'll always excuse some pain, as long as the ride has good forces, and Gale Force is full of great forces. If I could change one thing, it would be better trains. Maybe something like Gerstlauer lap bars would work here, and that would make this rank higher on my list. But in the end, it's a unique and forceful ride, and it deserves the #1 spot as the best coaster on the Jersey Shore.
I might lose, but then again, I'm still going at it.
That's all I have for this video. Let me know what you think of my ranking and your experience with these rides, and if there's anything else on the Jersey Shore that I didn't ride that's worth checking out. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you're new here and love coasters and rankings, be sure to sub and hit the bell for more content just like this. Also, be sure to check out my links below for my Discord server, where you can chat with other fans of the channel, as well as my second channel, where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
I ended up, you know, taking care of business and sort of winning, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, I got a hard head.